Ooh, we are back again. This week is a much smoother transition to the intro. We pretty much started on time. What's going on, good people? Coffee grind. Right. I think the internet's good now. Internet's good. I think we're all good. And as we're kind of winding down this year, and next year we're going to be looking to get more and more guests on. I figured that this week, since we kind of talked about the lessons that I've learned in 2022, this week we'll talk about shadow work. This is something that want to demystify because I think shadow work has been something that people have begun to believe is something very mystical. Realistically, um, it's not what people think. It's not what people think. So, I figured we'd take this time. This is something that I am putting together a TEDx talk on, so this will be kind of like a preemptive run for that. And I figured, hey, let's talk about it because if you've been on social media any amount of time, especially if you have been in the space of personal development or even the spirituality side of social media, then you have heard people talk about shadow work. And shadow work is one of those things where a lot of people at the time when they hear shadow work, I believe, will have a very, um, I would say, interesting take on it. And I would dare to say that let me share this to my page real quick before I go too deep into it. Let's make sure it's a share. So yeah, I would dare to say that, people will have kind of the wrong idea for about shadow work. Um believe that people kind of see as shadow work, especially if they go around the side of social media that is more in line with the spirituality side. Um, I believe that they that's Doctor Strange, of course. And I think that people actually that's what they believe or think of when they hear the word shadow work. They believe and think that, oh yeah, shadow work is going into dark dimensions, is going into, especially down the spiritual path. They believe, oh yeah, it's going into that realm of actual shadow entities and spiritual realm and all that kind of stuff. However, what shadow work really is the shadow is something that a psychiatrist by the name of Carl Jung, as he came up with. Um, Dr. Carl Jung was a psychiatrist and a as you say, therapist, and he worked out a lot of theories. And one of the things he came up with was what's called the ego and the shadow. Some people call the ego the persona, but ego and the shadow, and that's really where shadow work comes from because you've got your ego, which is all the aspects of yourself that you will actually identify with, that you kind of, I guess you could say, proud of, that you see yourself as, and then you've got the shadow, which are all the aspects of yourself that you do not want to see, all the aspects of yourself that are there, but you kind of pushed off to the side, especially when you were a kid. A lot of times that was due to to make sure that you were accepted by, um, that you were accepted by your parents, by friends, colleagues, all that kind of stuff, right? So, ego and shadow. And what shadow work is, like I said, all those aspects of yourself that you don't want to see, that goes into the shadow. And the shadow work is actually integrating or looking at those aspects and integrating them back into your personality, I guess you could say, into your whole yourself being. So what's important and why, so that's kind of the what is shadow work. Um, the importance of shadow work. The reason why that's important is because a lot of times we'll have the shadow that we have made, and this kind of this other aspect of ourselves that's not really, we don't really identify with us. It's still there and it's still us. And again, that comes from a lot of times in childhood. We will childhood, when we're younger, we will throw those things in the shadow. We don't see them as important aspects of ourselves. So we see those aspects of ourselves that will get rejected. So it's really kind of a survival response. However, as we get older, some of those things will become very important. So that's kind of the why shadow work is important, because there are things that a lot of people will throw into the shadow that that they need as they grow older. For example, I like using this example because it's a personal one. People that are people pleasers. I think we talked about it a little bit last week. So people that are people pleasers are typically very agreeable people. However, what happens is, to be agreeable, sometimes you don't want to actually say how you feel. And so since you don't say how you feel, that saying how you feel might rock the boat. You don't want to do that when you're a people pleaser. So saying how you feel gets and saying what you really think gets thrown into the shadow. However, that's a very important aspect of yourself that needs to come forth. Reason being is because you don't say what you feel, you don't speak up for yourself. Hey, it can cause problems down the road. It can cause resentment, which I think in 2 weeks, we're gonna talk about, people pleasing and why that's important. It can cause resentment. It can cause you to feel depressed because your needs aren't getting, um, you're not getting your needs taken care of because you're not communicating your needs, and people aren't, people aren't mind readers. They don't know what your needs are if you're not communicating them, but you're scared to communicate them. So, anyways, so all that stuff gets thrown into the shadow, and just be, if you're highly agreeable, people pleasing type of person. But it can cause issues for you as an adult. As a kid, yeah, that might have been something that you did to make sure that you don't upset, parents, authority figures. You might not want to upset people that are around you that are your peers. However, as you grow into an adult, if it sticks around, that causes an issue. So that's the reason why shadow work is important, to work through those things and see what are the things that I don't identify myself with, and why are they there? Maybe where did they come from? And that's what the actual shadow work is. And one of the last things we want to talk about is why is shadow work important? Like why like well, excuse me, I already talked about why, but how do you do shadow work? Let's rephrase. I had to go to my notes real quick, make sure that I wasn't missing anything. So that's why it's important, because there's well, let's step back for a minute. Outside of being agreeable, outside of being a people pleaser, it is important because there are aspects in the shadow that guaranteed you are going to need, and that can come in very handy throughout your life, outside of just the fact of that one example that I told you. But there are other things that I guarantee that are there that are important to you that you can use in your everyday life that might have been thrown in there. All right, so that's the what shadow work is. That's how um why shadow work is important. How do you do it? I would say one of the most important things with shadow work, it all comes down to EQ, the emotional intelligence quotient, right? So that's what you got. It's all about being it's all about, the emotional intelligence. So it's just like knowing that one of the biggest thing you do, and I know this isn't a PC word to use anymore, but when you're triggered, when something triggers you, dive in. You want to ask yourself, why is this triggered? Why is this something that triggers me? Why is this something that has brought up this emotional response? Also, look at things that you see in other people that you dislike. Oh man, they need to change this. They need to change that. Hey, that is probably most likely a that is a prompt to you that if you're like, oh, they need to change this, then maybe it's something that you need to look at yourself and see, hey, that's something that's in my shadow that I'm just not wanting to look at. Because it kinda goes with that saying that the cave you fear it's my background on my screensaver, so I'm reading it right here. The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. Joseph Campbell, he's one that does the architect of the hero's journey and all that kinda stuff, right? So and it's so true. The cave that you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. That one thing that you're afraid of, that you don't wanna look into, that one thing that you don't wanna look at that's typically hiding in the shadow. That's where the shadow work comes in too, you know? But those archetypes are there for a reason. That is the one thing that either is gonna take you to that next level in your life of success, or when you get to that next level of success in your life, you're going to definitely need to be able to maintain that next level of success. So that is the nutshell version. See, all right, so I'm at 13 minutes, so I've actually hit basically my TED Talk time. So when I do TEDx, I'll add a little more flair to it. But so I hit my TEDx time, so that's spot on. That is shadow work. That is demystifying shadow work. It is not going into like dark dimensions. It is not a spiritual concept. It's from psychology, from Carl Jung, and it is something rooted and grounded in actually self improvement. Really has nothing to do with shadows and devils, demons, and that other realms, other planes of existence. Um, hopefully that helps. I see a few people in here. Appreciate you being in here. Appreciate you popping by. This is probably going to be a short stream tonight, but I wanted to just kind of take the time to demystify what shadow work is because, again, when we're on social media, if you, especially if you're in the spiritual community, you're probably hearing people talk about shadow work, and they're talking about it a lot. And because it is important, because I believe in my mind that the spiritual journey is a journey of healing. There is, some trauma, no matter how good your parents were, no matter how good your growing up was, there is some trauma that you have and some baggage that you have, even just in life, even outside of childhood. And those areas of life have to be addressed and healed. It's something that needs to be done. And then that kind of helps out, obviously, with the spiritual path, no matter what that is for you, religious, spiritual, whatever you identify as spiritually. Those things need to be healed. And that's the reason why when we're talking about spirituality, especially on social media, they talk about shadow work, but nobody wants to sit here and explain what it is. And so I think that's kind of my mission for 2023. I mean, I've done it here and there in videos throughout, really starting 2021 and this year. But I wanted to like just kind of once and for all, and I'm gonna take probably some clips from here and put them on social media, but kind of clear the air what shadow work is, clear the air on why it's important and the how to do it. Again, I always, if you've heard me on any social media or if you've seen me on any videos, I always highly suggest journaling. Is something that I myself struggle with doing on a regular basis, but when I do, ooh, buddy, hey, it's something to behold. Um, However, journaling is a great, like, again, get those when those triggers pop in your head, or you get those prompts of what you see in other people that you really you know don't like, which you probably might be something that's in your shadow. When you get those, journal it out, write it out. maybe write out, how it may how those triggers or what have you make you feel. Why is it that you think that it makes you feel that way? Where do you think that might have come from other areas in your life where you think you might have seen that earlier in life? Journaling, 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 highly important, highly recommended. I cannot say enough about journaling. Short stream tonight, y'all. I appreciate y'all that have been here and popped in, popped out. We are going to take let me make sure, let me double check my calendar. Yeah, Christmas is next Sunday. So if I don't see any of y'all, happy Merry Christmas and happy holiday Merry holidays and stuff. So we'll take that day off. Everybody's gonna be chilling with their family. Y'all don't want to see me. I don't want to see me there. The first will come. I'll be back here, probably talking about people pleasing, some of the stuff I've learned there, and then starting on the 8th, unless I got somebody that I'm waiting to try to get scheduled in here. But starting on the 8th, we're gonna have more of the guests, more of the coffee grind that you know and love. So you don't have to see me all the time just yapping. But we're gonna sprinkle in some of the just me chit chatting with you all along with guests. Starting January the 8th, 2023. So if I do not see you between now and Christmas, again, Merry Christmas, uh, Happy Holidays, and all of these things. I don't know if we're allowed to say, Happy Holidays anymore. But if you're just popping in here, definitely, hey, demystifying shadow work. It's important to do. It's important to integrate your shadow and your ego. That's what I got for you today. Hopefully that helps. We're gonna go ahead and get in here and sign off. Okay, as always.